For this episode of Back to the City, I'm excited to be joined by Excel.
Yes.
Who is about to release an LP, Trust Issues. And this is perhaps the last or one of the last opportunities that we'll have to see Luke, Excel in the Twin Cities, because what's going to happen?
Making my move to LA,
Yeah.
moving to Los Angeles for more opportunities and just be able to push myself into different directions, doing acting, modeling, and collaborating with different people, and just push myself to evolve as an artist and as a person.
Fuck, I'ma trust anybody I lie to. Lying to yourself while I lie right beside you. Right up on the side of myself, never tied to the 2 times 2 of a pride that ever tried to be faithful.
I previously visit LA after playing a show in Oakland. I went on a short little mini tour, did 3 shows in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest, and followed up with a performance with Javier Santiago and Rodney Ruckus in Oakland, California. After that, I took a bus, stayed down with my friends James Holmes and some other aspiring models and actors, actresses, and whatnot. And from the first day there, I decided I was going to move to LA. During that time, there were some triumphs and tribulations that I had to face and overcome, such as having my laptop stolen and some other things.
Did you lose music?
Yes, a lot of music.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of stuff.
A big yes.
A whole project. How
did that project relate to this one?
It was sort of a middle project in the sense that I was doing a project that just came to me that was recorded all within one session. And it was an interesting approach, but I wanted to make something very short that was flowing all the way through, and it was more of a spoken word project. Okay. There wasn't a lot of rapping on it. I think Kama and I did Gankama Black Magic, who was also on the Trust Issues album. He and I had a few short raps on it. A-Skip, Andre Spillman had some singing stuff. I had Tandy Seasway on there doing some spoken word. And there was a different collection of artists, and all the production was by me. It was just a really original project with a lot of different poetry and a lot of different aspects that were foreign to me, were very experimental, and allowed me to push myself outside of a lot of what I was doing before.
So what was the transition then from that, which we'll never get to hear, sadly, to this, to what we can currently hear, to Trust Issues?
So with that project, Crown Yourself, I was sort of bypassing Trust Issues in a way, because Trust Issues was more of a long-term project that I was working on. I knew I wanted to release it around this time, so either way this was scheduled, this was coming.
Yeah. It was going to be called Trust Issues.
Yes, yeah. So I still had Trust Issues on the back burner. But I wanted to release something faster. I wanted to release something for the people while waiting for Trust Issues. So that's what that was. And I have a lot of spoken word, and I have a lot of different things that I haven't seen surface, so I wanted to be able to platform those and highlight a different aspect of my work, as well as different sides of my production.
Will you release them? Will you re-record them, or do something of that nature? The more spoken word stuff, is that to come?
Yes, definitely to come. I mean, it's not going to go unheard, but it's just not going to be the exact same thing that it was. You know, I kind of let that later rest. A lot of those spoken word pieces and a lot of the artwork within that project will resurface. I still have a couple beats and production pieces from that, and I do still have it all in my memory. Yeah. So I can help to bring some of it to surface and recreate some of it, but it's not going to be exactly what it was, and I don't really want to spend all my time trying to recreate that either.
Something.
You know?
Yeah, of course, because you're an evolving artist.
Exactly.
Yeah. Holograms is the first single that's been released. That's been out for a bit. That's what we can hear right now.
Yes.
So let's treat that as our introduction to the record. That's what most people's introduction to the record has been. I love obviously the sense of illusion and reality in the word holograms, but then it's about drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the grams is also clearly referencing Coke in particular. Yeah?
Yes,
yeah.
particularly.
Yeah. Can you expand a little bit on what this song is saying about the relationship between drugs and music culture in general, and then in relation to the Twin Cities music scene as well?
So many people, I feel, see hip-hop as somewhat of a counterculture.
Mm-hmm.
And they see things that may be alien or that may be different from the experiences or the cultures that they have in their lives as something that is trying to overcome or take over something, you know what I mean? So within the greater culture, hip-hop culture and the culture of drugs and sex and money and all that, it's often seen as a deep, dark taboo. So in respect to the fact that I do have a lot of consideration, experience, and ultimately respect for that culture and that side of things, I wanted to make an honest song from the perspective that I've had and that I've seen within the lens of music, particularly hip-hop.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship that drugs, specifically cocaine, has, at least within the Twin Cities, but I would imagine, and I would probably be able to trace into a larger picture within the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come up off of drugs. A lot of people come up off of hustling, you know. And with all respect due to that, sometimes it gets stuff clouded. And we come to see that not everything that we see out here is real, in the sense that not everybody out here who's dropping the records that get the most recognition
Mm-hmm.
or that become the most popular are gaining those things simply because of the quality of music. You start to wonder why things are as popular as they are, or why they go as far as they do, and you start to see that there's a lot of financial backing here, you know.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, where's the money come from? You know, I mean, the rappers and the MCs and those people directly working on the ground in the face of the product, the music, may not be the people that are pushing the drugs or pushing those different things, but often there is something more behind it.
Yeah.
And this is also a grander thing too, because when we get deeper into the larger music industry, it isn't just drugs. I mean, drugs aren't the most sinister thing that help to push different agendas and different things through the music industry, but we're faced to come into question with what's behind the scenes. So in the song, I'm speaking about a woman, but the woman I'm speaking about specifically is cocaine.
Yeah. She's got a trick up her sleeve. She'd get a grip in a week.
Yep.
For example. So what led you to characterizing cocaine in this manner? I think it works really well.
I mean, I've had a lot of experience with coke throughout the years, personally.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm very open with that. It's not like I'm foreign or outside looking in.
Sure.
in the realm of drugs. You know, I've been involved with it, so I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I've seen the effect it has. And it's not always this deep, dark taboo, as I stated earlier. It's not always like the most evil, sinister thing in the world, but it's important for us to recognize. And it's important to come into question with what's really good for the music, what's really good for the culture, and what's good for the art. And what power do we have as listeners to be able to take accountability of what we're listening to and see where it may be coming from.
Yeah, seeing where things are coming from. So seeing beyond the illusion.
Exactly.
Hence hologram, but then also things being hollow and then grams of coke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you select this as the first single? And what does it reveal about the record?
So this was not going to be the first single.
Yeah.
Initially, but within the last few weeks, I decided to release it as the first single. A, because I produced the beat. B, because it sets a lot of premise for the record as far as the way that things are metaphorically represented.
The cocaine is a woman, for example.
And nearly all the songs on the project talk about a woman, because the motivation for the album started from past relationships and trust issues and things within myself that I had to be able to address and overcome. But I was able to use that motivation and those experiences to relate to different subjects, but using a woman as the vehicle to speak through, because that is the most relatable sense that I could be able to use for this whole thing.
So what are some of the other songs then where, like, a troubled relationship, a relationship with trust issues, how is that used metaphorically in some of the other songs on the record?
There's two songs that I can draw interesting parallels with.
Yeah.
There's one, it's an older song I produced. It's going to be remastered on the album. It's one of the songs that I lost the stems for with the computer that was stolen in LA. But
I'm surprised it didn't turn you off LA. You're heading back.
Oh no,
there.
yeah. I've
been to LA. There's a lot of good things about LA too.
Exactly. It's all about what you make of it. But I mean, that's the same thing with this place. But so Locks is about, it's sort of about playing a woman, but it's not really about playing a woman. It's about being able to feel like you have control in a situation or a relationship. You have control of yourself, or you have control of your emotions. Not so much control of the other person, but feeling like you're in a safe spot, respectively, of the other woman, where you can walk away and you can be there, and like you can be in a free-flowing relationship with another person, specifically for myself in this situation with this song, A Woman. And it can be a revolving door where you're able to go in and out without hurting the person. So that was written and motivated from previous relationships as well. And then there's another song on the project called Key, which is sort of the reverse aspect of being the guy in that relationship, being the other person in the relationship, and not realizing the effect that the person had on you until they withdraw, or until that energy is taken away. Right. And
whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just having that energy taken away. And a lot of the motivation for both of these songs came from being in polyamorous relationships and feeling those energies and those experiences. And polyamory taught me a lot.
Taught you a lot, so past tense.
Yeah. Or ethical non-monogamy. I don't really practice that now. I mean, I'm not even really practicing any serious form of relationships within my life right now.
Ethical non-monogamy. Which is a mouthful, but also is a lyric, I believe.
It is. It's a lyric on a holograms, yes.
Yeah. Good job making that a lyric.
Yes.
So what did it teach you? And if relevant to these songs, like, why past tense? You did learn something from it, but then you moved beyond it.
I think it's very relevant to what it taught me in the journey. What I found was I was trying to escape a system with practicing ethical non-monogamy or polyamory. And I put myself into a new system with even more rules and even more difficulties.
Because there's more complexity, there needs to be more rules to make sure people are respected.
And it depends on, which person you're relating with and whatnot. But I found that I'm just a very fragile human being. And for myself personally, if I want to be able to rely on anybody in any capacity, I want there to be some sort of dependence and stability there, to be able to know that this person I'm relying on is going to be there and not be like, oh, well, I just can't be there right now.
I'm with someone else right
yeah.
now.
And it's not even like a jealousy thing where it's like you're with somebody else.
Yeah.
No, that didn't
Just,
bother me
yeah.
so much. It's just like, oh, shoot, now I need to be able to vent or, get something out, but that person isn't there. So for me, it's like I'd rather almost be alone at that point, and I'm completely cool with that. But the one thing it did teach me, and the biggest takeaway that I had from my experiences were that, especially when I was in younger relationships in high school and even shortly after that, I was in this mindset of like being a player. And even though over time I started to communicate more and more, and it wasn't so malicious and like hook up with these women and this and that, communication started to be more free flowing, and I didn't feel the need to lie or create falsehoods to back myself up and make myself feel like I'm doing the right thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I realized I didn't need to take something from women. And
you didn't need to take something.
Yeah, I didn't. Like, it can be free flowing, it can be a shared experience, and I can learn a lot more from women sharing the experience and allowing myself to put so much out there.
In which one is a player? It could be something so much more collaborative and rewarding.
Exactly.
A lyric that really struck me in relation to what you were just saying about your younger self, and this is now in Trust Issues. The worst type of player to ladies who found a friend in me. Can you elaborate a bit more on that in relation to what you were just describing?
Yes. Well, I found that I've been my worst enemy in many senses. Just creating positive reinforcement for things that didn't need to be reinforced. In other words, like the ideologies I had within myself that I was doing the right thing, getting close to a woman, if I knew it wasn't going to be something more than it was, and leading them on, making them believe it was going to be something more than it would ever come to be in my own eyes or in my own mind, and not being open with that or their perspective on that. Always having the idea in the back of my head and the justification of, I always aimed to make sure that a person would be better than when we were together, or I could offer something or give them something. But it wasn't really so much about giving them anything, it was more about taking. And it was a very selfish approach to being in relationships and whatnot. So and a lot of that was found through situations with women and ultimately people that I should have just approached from a more respective angle. Like I should have approached as a friend. Rather.
Yeah, and
down that path.
Yeah, and the seeds were sown for that possibility. There was, even in the lyric, ladies who found a friend in you. So there was always that possibility, and that's something which you're pursuing more now. The younger, dumber me caught up on some Clark Kent moves. It's the way in which you put
trying
it.
To play Superman.
In the record. Yeah.
Yep. I had a lot of internal issues, and I don't want to externalize them because even within my relationship with the long-term relationship with my previous ex, it wasn't so much about her or myself or our relationship together. It was more about things that I had as baggage internalized that I needed to deal with before I even got into that relationship that I hadn't dealt with. And now, having been able to take the time to reflect upon that, using this art as therapy and using this art to be able to explore different aspects and angles of experiences and that baggage, I've been able to not only unleash a lot of these things, but find places for them within my own self where
transform
I can now
them into something positive.
Yes, and use them for just future endeavors and being able to help other people work through the same things, hopefully, and just integrate it into the art and life.
Can you think of a positive attribute or quality or skill that you're exercising now that you feel can be traced back to something negative before?
I think communication is the biggest thing. And I've also stepped back from control because control within relationships is always very detrimental. It's something that I feel comes up sooner or later, whether it is one party trying to control another, or
so with like an ultimatum, or by well, there's so many different means by which that would happen.
yes, or just like situations where there needs to be some sort of control in this, like where do we find the median, where does this control come from, how do we decide these things together, like when you're living together, different rules that need to be established. And the thing about my previous relationship was we had a daughter, or we have a daughter together. It's not my blood daughter, but I've raised her for several years, so that situation and that dynamic was very difficult for me because I didn't have the same control over that situation or over her. Not only legally but within the household and whatnot. And just having the principles and the ideologies that I had for raising a child, and not being able to exercise those were very frustrating for me, and it was very difficult, and I'm very glad that I had that experience to be able to learn what I've learned today. And now I'm just figuring out how to be able to apply those principles that I've learned and make sure that I don't make the same mistakes, and that I'm still able to draw the same positive qualities, because it wasn't all negative, you know what I mean, but definitely not repeating the same mistakes or repeating the same shortcomings that I have.
It's interesting that the term control comes up again, because we used that near the beginning of the interview when we were talking about the two other songs where the medium of a relationship is used. And there you were saying that there's different types of control. There's like where you try and control someone else, or there's basically self-control, which is easier talked about than achieved.
Exactly.
And it's almost as if like this trust issues record, something that you come to trust is your own capacity to grow and to establish like real connections with others, like particularly with women, so rather than like trying to manipulate and be the player and get something from it, then entering into a more collaborative, like real free-flowing two-way thing. The focus on what that means for one's character and one's developing self comes up at the end of both trust issues and holograms, I think. Because at the end of holograms, there's a call to believe in the basis of energy. Am I quoting that right? Believe in the basis of energy. What it means to be me is what you give is what you get. Nothing worthy comes easily. Did I get all that?
Yeah, what you give is what you get, and nothing's coming easily.
Right.
Yes.
What's the significance of holograms ending in that manner?
The exchange of energy is very, very serious and very real to me, and I've always felt, you know, even with when we're talking about holograms specifically with the chemical stuff, even with chemicals, it's like I've never felt the need to use any drugs to get away, to run away from anything. That's never really been what it was about. It was always
an escape.
Yeah, it's never been an escape for me, and I know a lot of people who do feel it is an opportunity for escape. For me, the reason why I've never been drawn to that idea is because you're taking it from somewhere within yourself. Like, you're not taking a chemical and it's giving you something. It's taking an exchange of endorphins, or it's pumping you with different chemicals in your brain. Dopamine, serotonin, and like, it's exchanging those things. You're going to feel that later. Like, that's going to come back to you. So why would I want to get this like spike of emotion during a time when I'm already vulnerable?
Right.
Like,
it's an escape that creates a new
problem. A whole new scenario. And I see a lot of people inflicted with that.
Yeah.
And you know, oftentimes those are not dependencies or addictions that we have with chemicals indefinitely. It's outlying problems and deeper psychological mountains that we need to climb and overcome. So that's never really been something with me, but I see and respect the fact that the exchange is very real in all aspects, and the exchange within relationships of energies is the same way as that exchange with chemicals of what you give is what you get.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give more than I'm willing to take from myself. You know what I mean? I don't want to give all of myself. I don't want to put myself out there. It's like, even when I'm injured, and the doctor tries to give me codone.
Yeah.
I don't want to take codone on a schedule. I know what happens with that. I've got a lot of friends who became addicted to heroin, and it all started with Oxycontin. It started after surgeries and stuff. So I know what physical dependency is.
Yeah.
And I know that I know that that's something that feels good naturally at first, but once you start getting sick because you don't have it,
yeah,
like that's a totally different thing. So I've always been the type to like stay away from things for those reasons.
Yeah. Hence the line,
in that respect.
Believe in karma. The follow-up's like a coma.
Like a comma.
Like a comma.
The follow-up's like a comma, yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
Run on, yeah. The follow-up's like a comma. So believe in karma, the follow-up's like a comma, run on until the sun's run over like my persona. So believe in karma, the follow-up's like a comma. And then that refers specifically to commas within sentences. It splits things up. It divides different things within the same subject, the same sentence. The line is specifically referring to karma's effect, and that effect being that it tends to divide our focus, and it tends to divide our ability to be attentive to what's really going on the plane of reality and on the plane of
beyond
the different issues that we face. Yes. But specifically within that give and take relationship, like going back to that, we don't always consider that. We don't always consider the karma. And that's what divides the concepts that we see and creates the indifference that we're consistently battling. Because in reality, there's so many similarities and there's so many things that we could build upon with one another, not only within romantic relationships, but just within professional and day-to-day physical relationships we have with the people around us. But we're consistently working against each other, and we're pushing each other further away instead of creating those bonds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although we are not. So speaking of
yes,
karma,
we are not. Yes, definitely.
Is was it like two or 3 years ago? And speaking of karma and give and take, you gave me an interview, and now I'm giving you an interview.
Yes.
It's nice. So I'd cut that wasn't even really in my mind, and because I was just excited about the new project. But then there is this kind of nice symmetry that fits with what we're talking about, which
of course.
And that was a Prosaic Minds interview, wasn't it? Which is probably hidden away on the YouTube somewhere.
Yes, it's all on the YouTube machine.
But as we near the end of this one, at the end of the song, Trust Issues, I handled my motivation full of escape like panorama. I plan on every scenario and variable I can. I do just what I am, and I do just what I want.
I do what I want and I am just what I am. Why would I ever pretend to be anything but the man as I plan?
Yeah. So that's how the title track, the opening track, ends, with an emphasis on yourself. And I think maybe with this idea of like a real control, a control over oneself, over one's thought process. And, I'm thinking, so when you were talking about an awareness of like serotonin levels or whatever, I think about that, and when you're kind of in control of the entity that is Excel.
Yeah.
That process seems really important for the record. What's the significance of this recurring focus on a record called Trust Issues, which is about like primarily overcoming distrust in others, the way in which the self shows up in this manner?
I feel like I've overcome trust issues, but a lot of those recurring themes are far deeper and are more root problems, such as control. And I think that last line that we were just referring to really goes deep into the fact that even though sometimes I myself or other people even in relation may feel that I or we may have self-control, we often don't have as much control as we believe we do. And within that lyric, it's like me saying, hey, I've got control of this is what I do. And oftentimes we also justify because it's like we have the best intentions. And I think most people do have the best intentions with what they do, what they say, and just overall their portrayal of life. But that doesn't always reflect the reality of what occurs within our actions or within anything other than our sentiments. So that recurring theme of control is something that I will continue to address and honestly portray and represent. I wanted to represent it within that lens. I wanted to represent it from that place of trust issues. So that's why that verse ended that way.
I'm Simon Calder. This is Back to the City. Thank you very much for tuning in. You are very much in control because you've got this record ready just in time before you depart for LA. I'm excited to hear the rest of it, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Peace.